This episode of See It to Believe It Paranormal Podcast features gore and excruciatingly detailed segments.
Watch yourself.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the See It to Believe It podcast. I'm your host, Ben, joined by Connor.
Yeah, let's go. Woo!
Yes. So today we're talking about spooky stuff. Connor, anything spooky happened to you in the past week?
Only these gas prices.
Oh, what about you, Jimmy? All right, thanks, Jimmy. Oh, what a dude. What a dude.
Yep.
So, today we plan on telling you some nice little things that have happened in this world of the natural and of the supernatural.
Hold
So,
on. My mic. Here we go.
Yes. Hi, Connor.
How's it going?
It's going good. I guess I will start us off today since you started us off last week. Mr. Connor, what do you know about the Amityville Horror?
Oh, I know that's the name of a movie. That's about as far as my knowledge goes.
Okay, so believe it or not, this is the most famous case done by the Warrens. It's not anything that's happened in any of the Conjuring movies, but it's still the most famous case that they've been a part of.
Wow.
So I'll start off with a little prerequisite before we get into the supernatural stuff. I mean, it could still be deemed supernatural, but on November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed 6 members of his family at 112 Ocean Avenue. Yes, there's a place off Ocean Avenue. A large Dutch colonial house in suburban Amityville on the south shore of Long Island, New York. He was convicted of second-degree murder in November of 1975 and was sentenced to 6 sentences of 25 years in prison. Okay? You got that, Connor? So a guy went in there, killed his whole family. Now, the creepy thing about this is that when he went in and shot them, nobody, so there's pictures of the stuff, and nobody was, had any signs of struggle. So how do you go in and shoot 6 people without waking anybody else up?
Silencer on that.
It's a shotgun in the 1970s.
Never mind.
There is no silencer for... I mean, there probably is, but... So, the weird thing is... I mean, it's really not weird. There was a thunderstorm that night, but I don't... I feel like I could determine the difference between a shotgun and a clap of thunder.
I think so. I think I could, too.
But, so, there's this theory that there was possibly a demonic being in the house before there was ever any reported activity that held the people down to their beds and kept them asleep because they were all facing down into their bed when they all died. None of them were facing up. But
Weird.
yeah, they were all killed. And then in 1975, George and Kathy Lutz and their 3 children moved into the house. So the house was sold so quickly after that the furniture of the DeFeos was still there when they moved in, and it stayed there.
Oh.
The Lutzes paid an extra $400 to keep all the furniture there. And then George had a friend who lived there, and the friend told him to get the house blessed. But, going where the story goes, obviously, blessing the house just wasn't enough. So, George was he was a non-practicing Methodist who had no experience on the world of horror. And Kathy was a non-practicing Catholic. Okay? I mean, they're not practicing, so that's just calling for demonic spirits and entities. So, by mid-January in 1976, after they attempted to get the house blessed, they experienced... Oh, wait, no, I'm jumping too far ahead into the story, Connor. I'm jumping too far ahead into the story, my guy. Okay? I put a note in the wrong spot. So, let's just get this out of the way. They only stayed in the house for 28 days after buying it.
Okay.
And some creepy stuff started to happen. Okay.
Like what?
So there were flies that would just appear in random places of the house.
Oh.
So what would you like not just like small amounts of flies, like many flies, like unnatural amount of flies. And there was like nothing dead or anything.
Oh.
And then they would also smell death, essentially. That's a common thing that happens in the supernatural cases, Ooh, stinky, stinky, stinky. Connor, do you know what the smell of death smells like?
No, I personally have not experienced that.
Connor, have you ever been to the fair in the middle of the summer and gone to the porta potty?
Oh.
It's worse than that.
Oh no, not the porta potty smell.
Do you like porta potties?
You know what? Hot take. I don't think porta potties are as bad as everyone makes them out to be.
Hot take. I agree.
They're,
If you gotta go, they're not that bad.
they're not. There's worse places you could go.
If they're clean.
That's true.
If they're not clean, then
Like the first day of the fair, they're always clean.
Then you get all the hillbillies. So, Connor, you know what else they would see?
What would they see, Ben?
They would see glowing red eyes.
Oh.
Is that our buddy the Mothman up in Amityville?
He's taking a day trip. Don't worry about it.
This is my house.
He wanted to come in and check on the devil, see if what he's doing.
Connor, what would you do if you were the devil?
Do little things to annoy people.
Oh, just little things.
Whenever you get like a door handle caught on your like jean belt loop.
Oh yes.
That every time.
I don't know how that even happens half the time. So you know what? I would expect there to be a demon involved. So, Connor, you know what the creepiest part about this all was?
What?
George Lutz, the guy who bought the house, so he wasn't the father of the children. That's not very important to the story, but I guess in some way it might kind of tailor into the authenticity of this case. But George Lutz became possessed and tried to kill everyone.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Wow,
that's always some fun stuff. And so that was like the last straw. And then so they became so spooked that they ended up leaving the house after 28 days and they never went back. They never went back for they did get their belongings, but they paid someone else to do it. Which is a big deal because they didn't have money to do that. So afterwards, the Ed and Lorraine Warren got involved. And
good friends Ed and Lorraine.
Ed and Lorraine. There is mention of the Amityville horror in one of the Conjuring movies. And real life Lorraine Warren claimed that the Amityville house is the most terrifying place she's ever been in. Because actual Lorraine Warren was psychic and she could see ghosts, apparently. Because psychics aren't all that trustworthy. So this is actually the case that this was bigger than Annabelle. So this one made the Warrens be super popular. They wrote a book about it in the 19. Yes.
Was Annabelle part of The Conjuring?
Annabelle.
Is that a spin-off of The Conjuring movies?
Yeah, Annabelle's a spin-off of the Conjuring movies.
Okay, thank you.
None of the Conjuring movies, none of the Annabelle movie stuff is actually anything that genuinely happened. But there is.
I guess that. I just didn't know from lore-wise.
But the you know what? I'll do the actual Annabelle case next week.
Oh yeah, I'll do an SCP next week then.
Oh. And so the spookiness. So the Warrens got super popular off of the Amityville horror, and a lot of people started calling them out for hoaxing this all together. But at the end, it could not be proven.
Yeah.
So, in May 1977, Kathy and George filed a lawsuit against the defense lawyer for the guy who killed the family. I don't know why. I just thought that was a fun fact.
What did he do?
I don't know. I couldn't find it. And then in June 1979, George and Kathy took polygraph tests. For those who don't know what that is, it's a lie detector test, which is not admissible in court. And they were tested by the best polygraph experts in America, and the results did not indicate they were lying. So they were telling the truth, according to the polygraph, which is not admissible in court. So nobody really knows if the Amityville house is haunted or not. Nothing's happened. Well, the owners say stuff has happened since, because, you got to keep the spirit of the Amityville horror alive, but it's been deemed a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And so let me pull up my other notes real quick for you, Connor. Just for you, I'll do it.
It's a nice looking house, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. It's also
I didn't know it was haunted. I'd move in here.
Well, that is a very common house layout, for the world to know. So, sadly, we won't really ever know if the house is haunted or not, because sadly, before the Warrens passed away, both Kathleen and George Lutz passed away, both in the mid-2000s. Sadly, they got divorced in the 1980s, though, so you never know. You never know what's gonna happen, Connor. Is this place haunted? I'm asking you.
Know.
Oh, I see. So, the Amityville horror also spun off like 20 movies, ranging from the 1970s to 2021.
I looked up Amityville and I just got a list of movies.
Oh yeah, there's like 20. I personally have seen 3 of them. I've seen the original Amityville horror from 1979, Amityville 2, which is terrible. It's everyone's favorite incest movie. And I've seen the 2005 remake starring Ryan Reynolds.
Wow.
And yeah, Amityville Horror.
Good. Not good. Wait.
What? Connor, are you possessed by a demon?
On to my topic. But Ben, that was a good story about Amityville.
Yes. I didn't cover it as well as I could, but next week with Annabelle, I will 100% get all the facts and details.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ben, I want you to put yourself in a little bit of a pastime.
Oh God.
Year was 2010.
Oh shit. Okay.
Right? How old were you in 2010, Ben?
2010. I was. Oh, what month in 2010? January 1st, 2010. I was 8 years old.
8 years old. Well, let's say 8-year-olds. They're a curious bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd say.
Let's say you somehow manage onto the internet.
I probably
A word you heard around school called creepypasta.
I never heard about creepypasta at school.
A little creepypasta, first creepypasta, pops up. And today we are talking about the Russian sleep experiment.
Oh yes. See, I never heard of creepypasta at school, but I did learn about the Russia sleep experiment at school.
Yes. Now, just to preface this, I did do some research and I did come to the conclusion the Russian sleep experiment is indeed a work of fiction and not in any way real.
Damn.
I hear people talking outside the room I'm in.
Are they scaring you?
Really? Anyway, so I figured I'll read a little bit and then we can talk and I can read some more. How's that sound, Ben?
That sounds like a fun time.
Okay. Hold on, I printed it out so I won't have to read it off the screen.
Okay. Very smart. Big brain.
Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them. Wait a minute. I read part of this last week. I just realized. I read a part of this last week during the last podcast.
At least people now know that if they're watching in the future, they are in fact watching it in chronological order.
Didn't kill them since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass-sized porthole windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water in a toilet, and enough dried food to last all of them over a month. Test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Yeah. It sounds like something that could happen.
Yeah, it sounds realistic.
Especially in the 40s.
Yeah.
Really wasn't that much ethical stuff you could really do.
We're on the brink of constant war.
Yeah. And so, everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, and having been promised, and this is false, they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Which, I don't know about you, but I couldn't go a day without sleep.
I could go 36 hours. And then I'm dead.
I could go, I think, like 23 hours, like almost a day. Then I'd need like a 1-hour power nap.
Power naps are powerful.
They are. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic events during their past. The general tone of the conversations took a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. So they're already, starting to get a little dark.
Yeah.
After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were, and they started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternatively whispering into the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades. The other subjects in captivity, I stapled it wrong so I can't read that word. The other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them seemed to start screaming. Ran the length of the chamber, repeated yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. Researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. A surprising thing about how this behavior was how the other captives react to it. Or rather, they didn't react to it. He continued whispering into the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. Two non-screaming captives took their books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes.
You gotta love it.
Screaming promptly stopped. So, I have a feeling that did not end well for them.
No, not at all.
Then, not only did the screaming stop, so did the whispering into the microphones. After 3 more days had passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were still working. Since they thought it impossible. Oh my gosh, I cannot read today. No sound could be coming from within people.
You're just having a fun time.
Gosh, yeah. I used all my brain power on the radio this morning. Okay, let's try that again. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something that they said they would not do. Tried to get a reaction from the captives. Used intercoms inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives. They were afraid they were either dead or vegetables by now. Announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot." It's like a little dance. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor.
That's like a lyric in a rap song.
Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom. They're surprised they heard a single phrase in a calm voice respond. "I no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Able to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. They're about to open the chamber. Ooh. Wonder what they'll see.
Oh.
The chamber was flushed of all stimulant gas and filled with fresh air. Immediately, voices from the microphone began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of their loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened, and the soldiers sent inside to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. The 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them in life. I read that really good.
Alive. It's alive.
It's alive.
Traumatic.
I did not space this out enough. Food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subject's thighs and chest stuffed into the drain to the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. Destruction of flesh and exposed bone on the fingertips indicated that these wounds were indeed inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all, of them were self-inflicted. Abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, diaphragm remained in place. I did a text and that took me out of it. Oh my gosh, I was doing so good.
Ew.
I lost where I was. Okay, I found it. Okay, I got it. Skin and most of the muscle attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They'd just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out and around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. Digestive tract of all four could seem to be working, digesting food. Quickly it became apparent that they were digesting their own flesh that had been ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects, continued to scream to be left in the chamber, and alternatively begged and demanded that the gas be turned on, lest they fall asleep. Everyone surprised, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out, another gravely injured and having his... I gotta make sure I'm not being put over radio right now. It can happen in these rooms sometimes. You just like sitting here and then all of a sudden, hey, you're on radio. Oh, okay. Anyway. So one died from having his throat ripped out. Another one died from having his arm ripped off. And then an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. The other 5 soldiers lost their lives if you count the ones that committed suicide in the following weeks of the incident. The struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost instantly. Medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the amount of human dose of morphine derivative and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the arms and ribs of one doctor. His heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he bled out, to the point where there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally became silent. Let me see how many pages. Oh my gosh, I got so many pages left. I got 5 pages left.
I think we're gonna put a gore warning at the beginning of this episode.
That's probably a good idea.
Because I know if I was feeling queasy, I'd probably...
This would not be a podcast to listen to.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben, how do you feel so far through the story?
Having heard this before, it's not a. I mean, it's a fun story to listen to, but it's also not a fun story to listen to. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why it's a really famous story, and that's because the details are so descriptive that you can just picture it in your mind.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll take a break from reading real quick to give you a little fun fact.
Okay.
It pops up whenever you type the Russian sleep experiment.
I have. I've done it. I typed in the Russian sleep experiment.
See a picture of what looks like a person?
I did not have. Oh, yeah, there it is. I clicked on images, and there's the famous picture. I've seen this picture a lot.
Do you want to know a fun fact?
Sure.
It is not a person.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a person.
It's actually a Halloween animatronic.
That's pretty funny.
Now, I saw that and I'm like, are you serious? And I looked it up and it's like, hey, it's not. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. They said they got it from a Spirit Halloween in early 2009.
I don't doubt that. I love Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, I do too. I wish it was an all-time store.
I agree. There's a lot of times when I could just purchase a mask or something. Like if I'm making like a like in production to make like a short film, I would love a Spirit Halloween.
That's why I love like living 30 minutes away from a Dean's Party Mania.
Yeah. You mean the Dean's Party Mania?
The Dean's Party Mania. Did I tell you I bought a mask from there the other day?
No, you didn't.
I bought a Michael Myers mask.
Which Halloween, Michael? Which one?
First one.
Oh. You mean
Yeah,
you bought a Pale William Shatner mask?
Yes, I did.
Ah.
The reason why I bought it is because I might be, now this is a might, going to a horror convention sometime in A, and Nick Castle's going to be there.
Oh, I love Nick Castle.
I'm going to try to have him sign that. I'm also bringing a Scooby-Doo VHS tape, and I'm going to try to have Matthew Lillard sign that.
Oh, but that is. Oh yeah.
And if you come over in the summer and I end up going, I'll show you.
I'm just gonna go to this horror convention.
You want to go with me, Ben?
You say it's in May?
Yeah, it's in May. It's in Cincinnati.
I might go. I might go.
I guess we'll continue on with the story.
Yes.
Right. Surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begged for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. Most injured of the 3 was taken only to the surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the Ben,
Yes.
say that word.
What word?
It's like what they give people before surgery.
Anesthetic? Or
Thank you.
is that it?
Yeah, it's anesthetic. I couldn't figure out how to say it. Anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through the 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist was as well. Only took a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under. The instant his eyes flooded closed, his heart stopped. The autopsy of the test subject that had died on the operating table, it found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had 9 broken bones in the struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. Like ASMR, I'm turning the page. Reading along at home, turn the page.
Yes.
Second survivor had been the first of the group to 5 to start screaming. Vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery. He only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly that they try the surgery without the anesthetic. He did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that this should be medically impossible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times, whenever his eyes met hers. The surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming that this must have been some drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen, pad, and fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The 2 test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well. So they had it be injected with a paralytic the duration of the operation. The subject found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in a normally short period of time. They were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. Researchers tried asking them why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given: must stay awake. Turn the page. Like listening to Audible, but crappy Audible.
It's a good thing we're not an Audible.
Just imagine this on Audible. You're driving to work at 7 in the morning. What do I want to listen to? Well, let's have the Russian sleep experiment on. Their guts were on the floor. Their blood was on the floor.
Who would pick the Russian sleep experiment?
It's like a mom in her soccer van with her kid.
Oh my gosh.
Well, kids, I know you want to listen to that new Disney movie, but I want to listen to my Russian sleep experiment.
That's totally gonna be kids or moms in 10 years.
That'll be them with true crime podcasts.
Oh my gosh, you're right. 100%. 100%.
All three subjects' restraints were reinforced when they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. Researchers facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of the project considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back onto the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-term confinement. Everyone was surprised all three stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back into the gas. It was obvious at this point all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all of his might. First left and right, then left and right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off a pillow and blinking rapidly. Turn the page. Having the first to be wired to the EEG, most researchers were monitoring his brain waves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes it flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on the paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut the moment his head hit the pillow. The brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. The brainwave showed the same flatlines as the one who just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, and turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun to the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of staff and research fled the room. Won't be locked in here with these things. Not you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, aching to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralyze when you go into nocturnal haven, where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out.
So nearly free.
I like how we did that together. Listening to Audible. If you would like to report it, please refer to No End House.
Original author unknown.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this creepypasta is so famous that it has a film in development.
Does it really? I didn't look that up.
Yeah, and there's already been a short film made, or as last that I heard, there was a movie in development for it. Maybe it got canceled. Okay, yeah, I'm not seeing anything about the one that was supposed to come out. There's a short film on it. The closest thing, it's so weird to think, but that it's somewhat. Have you ever heard of the Stanford Prison Experiment?
Yeah, I heard that. This is kind of not based off it, but shares similar.
Yeah,
Similar.
It feels similar in a way, but they're like nowhere close to each other. But you can kind of see how it takes creative
1 week
things. Oh yes. That was a story and a half.
Oh yes.
That was disgusting and
after that,
terrifying. But Connor, I too have a creepypasta for us, and then we can sign off after this.
All right, let me put the Russian sleep experiment away. Open up the folder.
Into the folder.
Never to be read again.
This creepypasta. It's a pretty famous one from Long time ago.
I about just went Jeff the Killer.
No. All of those popped up when I was when I was looking for this
No,
one.
me too.
But this one is relative to current events. It is a Pokemon creepypasta. Today, Connor, I am reading Lavender Town Syndrome.
Oh no, I know this one.
This one's one of my favorites. The Lavender Town Syndrome, also known as the Lavender Town Tone or the Lavender Town Suicides, was a peak of suicides and illness of children between the ages of 7 and 12 shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green back in February 1996. Rumors of these suicides and illness only occurred after children playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose music had extremely high frequencies that studies showed that only children and young teens could hear because their ears are more sensitive. Due to the Lavender Town tone, at least 200 children supposedly committed suicide, and many more developed illnesses and afflictions. And the children who committed suicide usually did it by hanging or jumping from heights. Those who did not act irrationally complained of severe headaches after listening to Lavender Town's theme. Although Lavender Town sounds differently depending on the game, the mass hysteria caused by the first Pokemon's game release. After the Lavender Town tone incident, the programmers had fixed Lavender Town's theme so that it would be at a lower frequency, and since the children were no longer affected by it. One video appeared in 2010 using special software to analyze the audio of Lavender Town's music. When played, the software created images of unknown near the end of the audio. This raised the controversy since the unknown didn't appear until Generation 2 games, Silver, Gold, and Crystal. The unknown translated to Leave Now. This is also said in the beta version of Lavender Town. It is also said that in the beta version of Pocket Monsters, to some kids in the test game. This version of the beta version. Then there's a video of Lavender Town, which we will not play for copyright reasons. But suicidal kids in Japan. You got people who rip their guts out and suicidal kids. Connor, did you ever play those old Pokemon games?
Are we talking like Pokemon Red, Blue, Green?
Yeah.
All those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever make it to Lavender Town?
I think so. I think I was too much of a baby. Restarted the game every time I died.
I did it once, and it made me feel sad. The music is so sad.
Yeah, I was about to say one from Finding Nemo where Dory's trying to speak whale. And she was like,
So this has been your weekly podcast from Ben and Connor.
Yep.
Hopefully next week we can be joined by some folks, but this week we were sadly not. We apologize for the lack of length for this week's episode. I was personally expecting for us to be joined by at least one other person.
Yeah.
But sadly we weren't. Anyways, if you guys follow us on social medias, you can find us at See It to Believe It Paranormal Investigations, or you could find us on our own personal profiles. I go by Benjamin Rinartz on pretty much everything. Connor?
I go by It's Your Boy Connor ITSYABOIKONNER most places.
And if you guys could please share this with your friends or just leave us a review on Spotify or iTunes. If you leave us a 5-star review, it can really benefit us. It can get us more out there and it can spread the word. So,
Yeah, I had been. With if people do decide to leave 5-star reviews, we might read a couple.
yeah. And maybe we'll do a giveaway for the 5-star reviewers at one point if we get enough listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will see you next week, next Friday, to hear about Annabelle.
Annabelle.
All right.
Annabelle.
So, like, what are we supposed to do in this after roll thing? What are we supposed to talk about?
Now, I had cough this morning that my like you know how you like taste stuff after you're done with it.
Yep.
My aftertaste is just cigarettes, and it sucks. Sucks, man, because it wasn't good coffee. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh.
It tasted kind of skunky. I probably shouldn't have drank it. I'm gonna die.